We will now be moving on to our second keynote speaker for the morning. Now, our second keynote speaker, please welcome Samuel Lang to the stage. Samuel is the Regional Director of Quacquarelli Simmons Intelligence Unit. At Quacquarelli Simmons, Sam manages Singapore, South Korea, Hong Kong, Macau, and Indochina. He's responsible for the overall business development and assists universities in the region to improve their institutional branding and profile through the implementation of QS consulting services, market research via the QS trackers, and the suite of QS products and digital solutions. Sam's previous experience includes senior international marketing and recruitment roles at top world-ranked universities in Australia, University of Melbourne, Trinity College, and La Trobe University, and in Asia, Duke and US Graduate Medical School. Thank you very much for being with us today, Sam. Look forward to hearing you.
Thank you. Very good morning. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is my first overseas trip in over 2.5 years since COVID hit. So, I was getting really nervous at the airport, just doing all my checks and just ensuring that I have my vaccination certificate with me. So I was doing the swab test just the day before, just to ensure that, I'm COVID negative, so that I won't spread any, of those COVID stuff to the country. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm definitely very honored and privileged to share with you on the QS perspective on what is the global citizen. So with my very first slide, I would like to take some time to introduce QS, the company, to you. First of all, can we have the slides? Yep, second slide. Yep, first of all, we have over 30 years experience as a thought leader in education sector. So how did the company came about? It all started with our founder, Nunzio Quacquarelli, back in the 80s when he was looking at further education abroad. There was no information about comparison of university. There was no information about understanding the qualities of university. And he ended up at Wharton Business School, and he was encouraged by his mentor to basically pursue a company in deriving universities rankings. So this is where we are today. We have the World University Rankings as our flagship. For Asian University, we also have the QS World University Asia region, as well as for some universities in the region, we also have the QS subject rankings. Because of our engagement with universities, we support the universities as well in the area of student recruitment. QS runs education fairs, particularly in the postgraduate sector across the world. We run it in 2 seasons, during spring, at the start of the year, and during fall, which is happening starting from next week in August. Because of our outreach to a lot of students, we typically reach between 200 to 250,000 prospective students each year. We also conduct the International Student Survey. And this is quite critical in what I will be delivering today, because the data that I have presented will actually come from the QS International Student Survey. So for more information about this QS International Student Survey, please drop me a line, and I would be more than happy to share this report with you. So every year, QS will actually come up with the QS International Student Survey. In order to reach out to prospective students around the world, QS also owns the topuniversity.com. Last year, we had over 140 million views, making us the most searched website for international higher education around the world. Apart from that, we also have over 40 million unique visitors to our website. Apart from topuniversity.com, we also have the topmba.com, which is focused on business school and postgraduate education, qschina.cn, which is a mirror image of the topuniversity.com, as well as QS Leap, which serves as a platform for students looking at pre-testing, such as GRE, GMAT, the LSAT, prior to applying for university. So over the last 30 years, we have built close relationship with over 1,500 institutions. These 1,500 institutions, some of them are currently ranked, some of them are in the process of making it through into the QS rankings, and this is what we are here for. QS is here to support the university with student connections, partnership management, providing enrollment solutions. Some universities outsource their international admissions office, and we are here to ease the process and to support them. To support academics in the area of networking, in the area of raising the profile of the university, QS runs conferences around the world. Earlier in June, we had the privilege to deliver the QS Edu Data Summit at the United Nations headquarters in New York, where we released the QS World University Rankings. Coming up in November, we will be having the QS Higher Education Summit, APAC, which will be hosted by Universitas Indonesia, and this will be held in Jakarta, Indonesia, from the 8th to 10th of November, of which I would like to invite all of you to participate if you're available. Collecting so much information, we deliver QS analytics to institutions to be able to help them with informing their market strategies, with intelligence of previously unpublished public data. We also support universities with consulting as well. The QS mission, therefore, is to empower motivated people around the world to fulfill their potential by fostering international mobility, education, achievement, as well as career development. And I think this is why we are here today. We have seen the collaboration between Swinburne and FPT, and you have brought Australian education into Vietnam. So once again, congratulations. So first up, the background to the 2022 Employer Reputation Survey. Every year, as part of the QS rankings, we invite academics as well as employers to rate universities of quality. We ask and invite employers from around the world, and we gather information on their perception of what constitute the best world-class universities. From the eyes of QS, we look at four main areas. In the area of research, where you have, as a university, you have to contribute back to academia. Number two is teaching, quality teaching, because you are training the next generation of leaders. Number three is employability. You need to ensure that the quality of your program is meeting the market needs when your graduates go out to work. And last but not least, internationalization. You can't claim to be a world-class university if you are not known outside of your home country. So these are the four areas that we are looking for. And we want to gather information from employers concerning issues that are central to the wider market understanding of the graduate recruitment market. The Employer Reputation Survey is one of the largest of its kind anywhere around the world. This year, for the QS World University Rankings, we have received over 30,000 responses from employers from over 140 countries, of which 16,760 were responses from Asia Pacific. When we do the QS Asia rankings, we have a higher weightage on the outcome of the employer survey. Within the QS rankings, 50% of the overall scores comes from academic and employer reputation, with academic reputation accounting for 40% and employer reputation accounting for 10%. For the Asian rankings, it is also 50%. However, there is a higher weightage of 20% for employer reputation compared to 10% in the world rankings. So for more information on the Employer Reputation Survey, you can click on to this link listed here. So we are here to understand what are some possible global skills gaps. Taking a quote from my beloved comedian, Robin Williams, he said previously that the idea of Juilliard was to give you this toolbox full of skills that you could take with you anywhere and apply to anything. I think this is the same for international higher education. When we study at a university, when we study at a vocational institute, when we study abroad, me, myself, I have been a product of international education. I have completed my undergraduate and postgraduate studies in Melbourne. And this has allowed me to take on international roles when I first came back to Singapore more than 20 years ago and started my career at IDP Singapore. Because of my experience having lived and studied abroad, I was very, very quickly put in positions where I supported the regional office, reaching out as far as the Middle East to run exhibition, to run recruitment fairs. And I attribute that to that opportunity of international education. So we are here wanting to be able to impart knowledge and skills that will allow every single student to be able to work anywhere in the world. And this is how you become a global citizen. So, ability is gained through experience. You are in a position where there are universities that runs summer programs, that runs internship, that runs work placements. It is also a promise made by universities to students that we will get you prepared for the workforce. It is about reducing the skill signaling, which is about identifying the skill set, but it is more towards improving skills development. Today, in this world that we are living in, we are talking about lifelong learning. Learning never stops. And I would be proud to say that during COVID, over the last 2 years, I actually did an online EMBA, which I have recently completed. It is about putting myself in the shoes of prospective students, from students around the world, on how they can continue to upgrade themselves in the situation, in the environment that they are currently placed in. For me, this is my first trip abroad after 2.5 years of lockdown, and I'm glad to say that the world has moved on. Institutions have progressed. We have seen at the start of the pandemic that institutions were rushing to place all their curriculum online because universities were being locked down. However, students still have the opportunity to stay at home, get online, and continue their education. I have been pleased to see and observe that there are many universities today that are still delivering a hybrid model of education, even though campuses have opened, students have returned, but more people, working adults, are continuing their learning experience online. So it brings me to the very next slide. Why does upskilling matter? It matters because life is a lifelong journey of experience. The more we go through life, the more experience we will receive. Upskilling is important because it allows you to pick up new skills. In my very last section of presentation today, I will be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and what impact it will have on the current world that we are living in today. So if you don't upskill, if you don't improve and learn new skills, you will find that you will be left behind as the world progresses. And this is why higher education institutions today have a strong responsibility to ensure that no one gets left behind. Secondly, it allows one to progress to a higher level of qualification. With a higher level qualification, you will be able to learn new things, perhaps in the area of leadership, perhaps in the area of management, perhaps in the area where you can make a difference where you previously couldn't have. Number 3, it will give you international experience. Upskilling, today, we are linked by the internet. We are linked around the world with a click of a button through our smartphones, through our computer. As I mentioned earlier, I was doing an online EMBA with a university in the US. I was able to do this learning journey without having physically been on campus in the classroom in the United States. And this is what upskilling, the online learning environment, the online lifelong learning experience is all about as well. And lastly, it will help you to build your professional networks. There is a saying that it is not how much you know, but who you know that will get you the job, that will get you the business contract, that will possibly support you in your business aspiration. This is why we are here today. We are in a conference where we get to know one another, meeting friends from all over the world, Australia, Vietnam, and possibly other countries. To those who are viewing on Zoom online, hello, and looking forward to seeing you one day in person. But it is about creating this professional network where you can reach out to resources that can help you answer questions, that will be able to provide you with the knowledge and information that you need to progress. When it comes to thinking about career, what are some of the important things that students are looking for? From our QS International Student Survey 2020, we asked that questions. You can see here, in terms of graduate skills that are important to employers, over 30,000 employers that have taken part in this survey has responded that communication is the most important at 98%. If you can't communicate, you will have a problem understanding the instructions. You will have a problem delivering, producing the result that is required of you. Teamwork is also important because no man is an island. We are working today in teams, and in some organization, high performance team that delivers very, very good quality results. Being flexible is also important to be able to work outside of your job scope, to be able to take on tasks that may not necessarily fall within your daily work. Problem solving, interpersonal skills, resilience, data skills, and so forth. We also ask then, which of these graduate skills are employers most satisfied with? And we have seen right here that they are most satisfied with teamwork at 90%. And a lot of this comes from the experience that students experience during their time at university. Students are made to work in teams. They are made to do projects in groups. And for some university, you finish off the degree program with a capstone project where they have to work in teams of between 3 up to even 8. They have to deliver a business case study, something that is of relevant. They need to do presentation. They need to defend their thesis. So teamwork appears to be the skill set that employers are currently most happy with. And this is followed closely by technical skills, which is further down below. Technical skills, being able to have the right skill set to deliver the work, is very important. And we have seen that for most employers, they feel that graduates today have that skill set to work. For communication, which is listed as the most important, this is coming in at 85%. There is a sizable skill gap between the importance of skills felt by the employers versus the satisfaction that they are receiving from the people that they hire. So this data here is taken from the 16,000 plus employers who had responded, and this is for the Asia Pacific. So this essentially was actually put into the previous slide earlier. And as you can see, this slide was initially presented in June to the QS ANZ Summit earlier 2 months ago. So for the biggest skill gap, we can see that the top 5 biggest skills gap lies in the areas of communication, with a skill gap of 13, flexibility at 13, problem solving at 13%, resilience at 12%, and creativity at 12% as well. So this is something that higher education institutions can take away with them. As you prepare and deliver your curriculum, how can you address these 5 key areas that has a bigger skill gap between what employer wants versus what employers are observing in the labor force today. So, do students and employer agree? Students tend to underestimate the value of resilience, having data skills, and interpersonal skills. And I would say that specifically for the APAC region, this is the case. Today, the students today have been brought up in the internet age. For me, I had my first computer at the age of 21 when I first went into university. I had my first smartphone when I was 25. My child today, I have two boys, 8 and 11. My eldest boy had his first computer at the age of 7 when my wife decided to send him for coding classes. He had his first smartphone at the age of 9 when we sent him for tuition classes and needed to communicate with him once he finished his class. The generation today are living in a high-tech world. The students today are in an environment where they have great connectivity. Sometimes they do not understand the importance of resilience. Being able to push forward difficulties, to be able to have problem-solving skills, because where can they find the answer? Google, right? Is there any other way of obtaining answers, obtaining information? Is there a better way of answering the question? This is where also creativity has also been dampened as a result of this high-tech technology era that we are living in. There is a growing demand for data skills, particularly in the area of analytics. In most business today, we are asking the question of ROI, return on investment. What is my ROI if I'm to undertake a marketing branding campaign? For universities, how will my brand be able to reach out to prospective students? How will international students, how will domestic students, for example, here in Vietnam, think of my university if I were to do a particular campaign? Everything boils down to the dollars and cents. And we need people with such skill set to be able to interpret data, to be able to interpret numbers in order to create market intelligence. Similarly at QS, because we collect so much data from universities around the world, we also develop what we call analytics trackers, where we provide institutions not only with data, but also a tool that can better serve and provide market intel for them. And of course, interpersonal skills. Isn't it common to see families at a dining table in a restaurant where every single person is looking at their phones? How many of you have been guilty of looking at your phone while you're having dinner or outside with your partner, with your loved ones, or even among your colleagues? We are in an environment where it is easier to send a text message rather than to speak to one another and looking each other in the eye. So I think at universities, we have also a strong responsibility to cultivate and improve the interpersonal skills as well as communication among people. When I started off my career more than 20 years ago, as a fresh graduate coming out of Australia, returning back to Singapore, I was very worried, number one, if I could find a job. Number two, if I could fit into the organization culture. And number three, whether I have the ability to do the job well. At IDP Education, I was a counselor at that time. I had to learn very quickly to put myself in a position where parents can trust what I say about making recommendations of education options to their children, and to bring myself down to the level where children or the youth or young adults can feel comfortable with me and to understand where I am talking about, what I'm talking about in terms of education. So these are some of the skill sets which I've learned at university as an international student, where I was all alone, far away from my family, where I have to learn to survive, to be able to speak to people from other cultures, to be able to express myself so that friends, fellow classmates from Australia, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Africa, South America even, could understand what I say. And I feel very strongly that interpersonal skills is very important in the workplace. For employers then, they feel that leadership skills, subject knowledge, sometimes are not present enough by prospective candidates. Students here overestimate the value of this. They think that you need to have leadership skills. This is the problem with young graduates today, where upon graduation, armed with a degree, they expect to jump into managerial position. They expect to jump into position where they will be making huge decisions. They will be in a position of authority. Sometimes it's not like this. And we have seen that as a result of this overestimation of leadership skills, some kids, some students, some graduates do not actually feel comfortable being employed. And thus, we have seen the rise of the startup generation. Startup today in Vietnam, in Southeast Asia, and around the world is such a big thing. Governments, NGOs are providing funding for the next unicorn that will be worth over $1 billion that will have a technology to change the world. Everyone wants to be the next Elon Musk. Everyone sees the value in creating their own business, because this is my own business, I make the decision, the success or failure lies with me. Subject knowledge. Subject knowledge is something sometimes that students overestimate the value of, and also employers sometimes feel the employees do not have enough. There is a limitation to how much knowledge that a student can absorb while at university. For example, if you achieve 80% for your final exam in your marketing module, what happens to the other 20% that you failed to achieve? Before you could do better, before you could take in the remainder of that 20%, you are moving on to the next level marketing subject. Some students may do better, may get 85, some students may drop and get 60 as each higher level subject gets harder. So we will always have a gap in our knowledge throughout our education journey. And this is where the university plays a role in providing the workplace industry placement during the holidays, the summer work, where students can pick up skills to make up for what academic gap that they have during their education journey. So moving on, what can we do with these insights? What are some actions that we can do? Number one, this provides the evidence for curriculum design. It is about helping program directors, faculty, and leadership understand the needs of the market. I have clients asking me, Sam, how do we increase the number of bums on the seats? I think this is a really important question everyone should be asking today. Is there something that a university hasn't done in order to ensure that the entire lecture room is full? Have we left out any prospective students that are not in class today and are missing out on that learning journey? It is about learning about the curriculum. It is about enhancing the facilities that can produce top quality graduates. Coming from Singapore, I would like to share with you that the Singapore government places a lot of emphasis on improving facilities. The use of technology, the use of equipment that our students get in schools, in the polytechnics, in the vocational institution, sometimes surpasses those offered at universities in countries around the world. We understand that resources are scarce and every university has a limited budget. It is about how best institutions can develop the curriculum to ensure a market fit for their graduates at the end of the day. Number two, providing guidance for degree and course selection. It's about supporting the student decision-making process in terms of their degree or course exploration and selection. I have, in my time in Australia, studied in 2 universities, one at Monash, a group of 8, and when I did my master's, I did it at Deakin. I realized very quickly then that different universities teaches in a different style. Some are more academic in nature, where you have 10% assignment, 10% mid-semester test, and then you sit for a major 80% exam. Whereas there are universities that are more technical in nature, that put into practice what you have learned by assessing you based on coursework, based on assignments, and based on your presentation. So there is, in my opinion, a university for every single student, according to your learning needs. So it is our responsibility, therefore, to ensure that we guide and provide prospective students with the necessary information for them to make a more informed decision. And lastly, a context for finding jobs in the future. It is about preparing job seekers who, at the end of their education journey at your university, has an understanding of how the job market looks like and what are some of the pain points for employers. So understanding this will put your graduates in a stronger position to get the job that they want. It will put them in a stronger position to fit into the culture and understanding the demands of their responsibility and what they need to deliver for their role in the business. Coming to the end of my presentation today, I would like to share with you some data that we have collected on the area of artificial intelligence. From our graduate employer survey, 77% of employers believe and think that AI will provide a more cost-effective alternative to highly skilled jobs by 2030. Mind you, this is less than a decade away. A blink of an eye, COVID has taken 3 years of our lives. Now, there is a pending monkeypox pandemic happening around the world, which World Health Organization has already declared. Are we in a position to take on another pandemic? Are we in a position to prepare graduates in time before employers feel that AI is ready to take over the world? 65% of employers think the social impacts of AI replacing some highly skilled job could actually be a positive thing. 65%. If AI can deliver what a typical employee can deliver, employers do not need to worry about organizational fit, about how these people fit into the workforce. They are able to use robotics, they are able to use system at a click of a button to deliver the information and the results that they need. According to employers, they believe that the following graduate skills will possibly be replaced by AI in 2030. And these are as follows. Number one, analytics and quantitative skills. I mentioned earlier on in the earlier slides that data skill set is something that is highly lacking in graduates today. And with this, with the presence of AI, it could make humans redundant. Technical skills, problem-solving skills, subject knowledge, language skills. For example, during my introduction earlier, I was in charge of Korean market. A while back, I had the opportunity to look at a contract presented by one client of mine, but it was in Korean. I don't speak Korean. I don't understand Korean. But with a use of an app on my smartphone, I was able to scan over the words over the Korean words and see English words popping up on my screen. The technology today could replace the language skill set. And more importantly, communication skills. So the areas which can be replaced by AI are also the areas which are becoming more and more important to organizations. According to employers, these are what they have rated. Firstly, for data analytics, 51% view that data analytics are very, very important. And this is followed by information systems, data science, user experience design, and so forth. Through our survey as well, we have seen that data analytics, the information system, data science are the emerging technology areas seen to be the most important to organizations and employers. Universities in the US, today and for a very long time has introduced a all-rounded education in their undergraduate studies. Students in their first year or even up to their second year of universities are able to choose from a variety of faculties, a variety of subjects that they may be interested to undertake. After learning from this presentation today, how are you as a university going to take charge with the knowledge that you have to perhaps design a curriculum that fulfills the needs of employers, to fulfill the needs of the labor force, to provide your future graduates with the skill set to be highly adaptable, flexible, and essentially to be successful in the workplace as a global citizen. With this, I thank you for your time, and I open the time for questions. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much, Sam. That was a brilliant presentation. We are just going to go into a Q&A session. I believe Dr. Marisha wants to ask a question, so I'll pass the microphone. Oh, she has one there.
Thanks, Sam. That was a really fascinating presentation. Now, if we could just go back to the 5 skill sets that are lacking, can we just go take the slides back until one of the earlier slides? I think it was the 4th or 5th slide. Go back. I think it was about before the start. So keep going back. Was it maybe keep going back? Back. No, forward. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. And next. 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 Right. The biggest skill gaps. This is really fascinating because if in the pandemic the students displayed such resilience, creativity, adaptability, problem solving, flexibility, in learning online, and therefore communication. I find it really ironic that the biggest skill gaps are the biggest things that people developed during the pandemic. Do you think perhaps it may be the universities, us, who are not really helping the students develop that formally? So rather than them learn it through the pandemic purely, I guess, by accident, we aren't developing those, using those accidental skills developed and we should be maybe perhaps developing formalised programs that allow students to develop those skills. Could you make a comment on that?
Yeah, I think this environment that we are living in is an environment that we have never experienced before, ever. The world has never been in such a long lockdown. People are developing mental issues. We have seen, probably not a thing to say here, but like even in Singapore, we have seen since the reopening and the relaxation of the COVID measures that crime rate has increased. There is a need for an outlet for people being cooped up for such a long period of time. Yes, student has shown resilience by taking their education online, but they are missing out on one key factor that makes us human, which is relationship. The need for face-to-face, the need to communicate, the need to feel a belonging, a need to feel wanted, the need to feel being able to contribute. I think universities at this stage in my opinion, can do a lot more. And I can see that many universities around the world have expressed concern about the mental well-being and health of their students, and of course of their staff that are working at the university. There have been measures in place to be able to be more flexible, to allow staff to work from home 1 or 2 days a week, because this has been in that environment that they have been in for the last 2.5 years. With formal programs, I think the approach then would be to tick off certain milestones that we hope to achieve. That, for example, in the area of communication, we want to be able to be in a position where lecturers are meeting with the students face to face. I remember back in my uni days when there are consultation hours. And in the minds of a lot of academics and even research students who served as tutors, those hours are, please leave me alone, don't turn up unless, you really have a problem. It is not an hour where, they are looking and anticipating your questions. So I think that also has to change. I think in an environment where, we are in an environment of influence, of changing and producing future leaders, we need to have that compassion for the students. So to answer your question, yes, I think it is important to have a program, but the world as it is, human as we are highly flexible, adaptable. We make the best use of our circumstances, but if as education leaders we are aware and we choose not to do anything about it, then the onus is on us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. We now, with the power of technology in 2022, we have somebody from Zoom who would like to ask you a question directly. So I just would like to introduce Dr. Linda Yang, and we're going to connect with her in a moment.
Hi, Dr. An. Mr. An, can you hear me? All right, great. Thank you so much for the fascinating presentation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I especially love the statistics. And I think you're a great presenter, by the way. So I have a comment and a question. Comment is that it was, I was hoping, so my daughter is 7 years old. She's been asking me to give her a smartphone. So I'm hoping to wait till when she's 12. But you just mentioned that you gave your son a smartphone when he's 9. So I'm hoping I can still wait till when she's 12 years old. Let's your fingers crossed about that one. Now, so the question is that I would echo what Dr. McAuliffe, that's her surname, isn't it? Apologies if I spell your name wrong, pronounce your name wrong. So the slide in terms of the skill gap, that's really fascinating. I think that, just to echo what you have said and Dr. McAuliffe's comment is that I think that the universities, oh, by the way, before I continue, I actually forgot to introduce myself. So I was the program director for Intercultural Development Program in Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School in University College of Dublin in Ireland. But I actually moved to Perth 3 months ago. So I left my job as well. So at the moment, I'm trying to adjust to the Australia. And so I was a colleague with, I was working for the same university with Dr. Douglas Proctor, so we were colleagues together, and now we're both in Australia, which is fascinating. So my question is that looking at the skill gap slides, right? So I feel that traditionally, I think, for the education, the university has always been focusing on, let's say, subject focus. For example, if you're finance students, finance. If you're a engineering students, engineering. So that is the core academic discipline. That's what the university has been focusing on. Now, so that's what we call it, let's say, academic skills or competency. But I think I'm just really happy to see the findings from the QS survey, meaning that, the biggest skill gap, let's say communication, all of this fall into the category of, let's say, transferable skills. And some may call it soft skills, which I do not like the word. They're not soft. They're very important skills. They are transferable skills. And I think you touch upon this, we need this set of skills because these skills are needed, like in terms of not only, at work, but also every aspect of our life. So then, but what is also very interesting is that you mentioned that communication skills can be replaced by artificial intelligence. That is really fascinating for me to see that, you see. So my question is really, twofold. One is that, is there a way to access, do you have a, let's say, more explicit report on this skill gap? Is it accessible? Second is that, do you see any impact in terms of COVID on employers' perceptions on the skills that are needed, let's say, from our graduates? Or are there any new skills emerged as a result of COVID? Those are two little questions. Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Zhang.
Before I answer the two questions, let me just share with you about my journey with giving my kid the mobile phone at age of 9. He doesn't have the phone. He only has it just for that short period of time when he goes for classes and things like that. It is about building responsibility, being accountable when he actually have that particular device on him. So right till now, he's 11. He don't have the phone permanently, and I only give it to him, during the weekends and times when he finishes his studies and things like that. So there's still a bit of control over phone usage. Back to your question, the first question, yes, a more comprehensive report is available online. The International Student Survey is released every year, and we get this information from our 240,000 plus students who had participated. So this is updated every year on our website. If you can't find it, feel free to drop me an email at samuel.ang@qs.com, and I'll be more than happy to share this information with you. The second question is in terms of the skills, in terms of the skill gap, or whether has COVID, developed a new skill set for people. I think the world that we are in today, it sort of shows that we are able to work remotely. I am still able to deliver on my goals and targets set by my company during the pandemic. You are calling in from Perth, and we are having this conversation is a testament that we are still able to conduct business even in a virtual or online environment. When we talk about some skill set which AI could replace, because, for example, with communication, if there is no need for humans to do some sort of work, then I think that particular technology software will easily replace. And we are seeing today that in a lot of manufacturing plants around the world, they are reducing the need for human labor and replacing it with robotics. But we are just using some examples from this particular exercise that we have delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe we have another question from Dr. Sean. I'll just pass the microphone over to him.
Thank you, Jos. Thank you for your presentation this morning.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's still this morning, maybe after, close. A couple of things sprung to mind listening to your conversation, and I'm a big believer in these global citizenship skills. And in particular, I've been teaching teachers for 20 years or more. So I'm right in that education field. And when I see these skills shortages that you put up there, you've listed resilience and creativity and things like that. It's a two-part question. Firstly, is this something we should be explicitly teaching as students come into university, as opposed to making them a graduate attribute or capability at the end of the course? Is it something that we should focus on explicitly and actually have subjects within those areas or a core program for students. I know some universities now are starting to do that. I haven't seen too much, I've seen mixed feedback about the success of that. And the other thing that comes to mind, we talk about COVID, is things around well-being. And a number of things you mentioned there were about well-being. And we see a system that sometimes we will say, is it too crowded, it's too much happening? Is there more about well-being that has to be brought into our system so that we care more about what's happening, so that we can develop these skills more within a context that looks out for everyone, not just the student well-being, but also teacher well-being? Complicated?
Yes, quite complicated. In regard to your first question, I think a lot depends on the culture of the country and the values that the university stands for. For example, coming from a Singapore culture, for example, I look at my children who are in the primary education system, and they have a lot of stress that relates to delivering and completing homework. And I have relatives in Australia whose children have no exams. They have a lot of playtime. I was speaking to some expat friends whose children are in international schools in Singapore, where their children are picking up 5, 6 different sports. I think it's the culture of the particular education system that creates that sort of graduates at the end of the day. For some cultures, like in Singapore, people may be very academically minded. They may have a lot of knowledge, but they may not have the necessary creativeness to think outside the box, to deliver work in a different way. When I was in Australia, it was very, very fascinating for me, particularly, coming from a system like Singapore where it is very, very clear black and white. In Australia, everything is grey. In my economics class, my lecturer was saying, either answer could be applicable, depends on how you argue. So I started developing mindset that there could neither be a wrong or right answer, but it's about the different ways that we approach a problem to derive a solution. So, for example, here in Vietnam, we need to be sensitive to the local culture, to understand what the local people needs are, to better understand their way of life, and how an education, an introduction of an Australian curriculum can not only enhance, but also to equip them with the skill set that can take the Vietnamese beyond Vietnam to Australia and possibly around the world as a global citizen. In terms of the mental health aspect, I think this is something that even within QS we are looking into. We are looking at also institutions that are focused on social development goals. What is the university doing that is impacting the community? At QS, we also run an audit called the QS Stars that reviews the university engagement to be inclusive, its impact on volunteerism, on charity work, and essentially how the university is making an impact on the community at large. Hope this answers your question.
It helps. It's good to hear this view. I suppose one of the things I also look at is we see these surveys and we talk about things like creativity. I'm going to pull out creativity because this is something
Sure.
I work in a lot. and I've had many PhD students working in this area. And your version of what creativity is probably entirely different to my version of what creativity is. So then, how do we measure that creativity is lacking in a workplace or in a university? And I'd love to know what approach is taken for these sorts of things. How do we measure creativity, critical thinking, and these aspects? And I know it's a difficult concept.
I think here at QS, we use fairly broad-based words. And like you say, my interpretation of creativity, my interpretation of being resilient, and it could be very different, depending on the country, the culture that one is from. But this particular survey that we have run, both the employer reputation as well as the international student survey, it has an outreach across the world. So when we use the word creativeness, it could be interpreted differently, but all the different employers from around the world, students, are responding to this question according to their own beliefs and value system.
Yeah, and I think that would be interesting to look at how we could look at that data, but maybe having a guideline that guides the response around what the meaning of creativity is, so that you would have a better range of data that, and I did pick on creativity or critical thinking,
sure,
because I know they're very difficult and they come up here, but how do we measure? And maybe if there was a guideline and said, this is our broad definition, or this is an example rather than a definition, maybe then the data would hold more strength across some of these fields.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I would definitely welcome any feedback that you have. I would love to share this with my team that actually prepares this survey as well. So we would definitely appreciate your input into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And we just have one final question for you. This one's quite concise. So, if you could give one piece of advice to young people who are beginning their journey to becoming global citizens, what would that be?
Well, I think it's important to have a very, very open mindset. Do not limit yourself to where you are currently in. Have the dreams to explore. Have the confidence to take on new challenges, because life is full of them. Never be afraid of failures, as there has been a sort of a statistics that shows that over 99% or 95% of all startups will result in failures. We are in an environment today where we have to be highly adaptable. We have to be in a position where we can comply, to have the skill set to be able to contribute to your job, and most importantly, lifelong learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.